I see John found a computer. John Selowitz.
Yep. Yeah. John's got a
his iPhone.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wasn't sure how it was going to work. I hadn't done it before, so.
It's simple. Yeah. Zoom makes it really easy, don't they?
It does. Well, except for everyone in one screen. At this time, it's like, you gotta kind of scroll around to see everyone.
I see Jared's got his official Zionsville Parks attire on. That's good.
Yeah, happy to represent.
Yeah, we need to get, we got a lot of new board members this year who probably haven't had an offer for park apparel.
That'd be
should
fantastic.
Get together. I don't know what our inventory is like or where we get that, but
yeah, we should get that sorted out.
Yeah, my green shirt is starting to look a little ratty, so I'd be interested in a replacement.
All right. That's free marketing, so of course.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's get started here. Let's call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Zionsville Board of Parks and Recreation. It is Thursday, November 12th, 2020 at 7 p.m. And pursuant to the rules and executive orders of Governor Eric Holcomb, we are holding this meeting via Zoom. And we do want to welcome any members of the public who might be attending, and would also let you know that if you do need any technical assistance, you might contact our IT person on this call, Joe Rust. It's JRUST at Zionsville-in.gov. So with that, let me do a roll call of the members present. Again, my name is Tim Cassidy. I'm president of the board. John Wollenberg, are you there?
Present.
Wayne Bivens.
Present.
John Stair.
Present.
Jill Pack.
Present.
John Selovich.
Present.
Erin Bidwell. There she is. She did make
Present.
it. All right. And I'd also like to acknowledge Jared Logston, our superintendent of Parks and Recreation, who is on the call. Roger Burris, counsel to the Parks Board, who is on the call, and Joe Rust, our IT professional, who is helping us administer this call. With that, do we have any comments or corrections or motions to approve our October 14th minutes?
I have no corrections. I would move to approve them.
Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
And I'll second that motion.
Member Jill Pack has moved to approve the minutes of October 14th, seconded by John Stair. We'll do a quick roll call vote. Wallenberg.
Aye.
Bivens.
Aye.
Stair.
Aye.
Pack.
Aye.
Salovich.
Aye.
Bidwell.
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so the minutes are approved as submitted. This is the time in our meeting when we give any public members present opportunity to make comments or presentations. So if there are any members of the general public who would like to say anything, now is the time to hold your hand up or let the Zoom call administrator know that you are present and would like to make a comment or presentation. All right, there being no public presentations requested, then we'll move on to staff reports. And we'll start with Jared Logston's superintendent report. Go ahead, Jerry.
All right. It's been a great first month getting oriented and learning the park district in and out. Couple updates. Been looking to incorporate a memorial program. Just within my first month here, I've received 3 calls requesting to either plant a tree or donate a bench in memory of someone. And what that tells me is this community is very involved and they care about this Parks Department. And so they want to have that recognition and remembrance. So from your packets, you could see the proposed price for a tree is $400, and that would include a 6 to 8 foot tall tree that we would coordinate with maintenance for planting, and also a small plaque, which would come in a little under 400, and that is to build up, not to really generate revenue, but support the program. If the trees are to fail, we would replant within that first 5 years. Same goes for benches, where that price point was $1,000 and includes a plaque within the bench. There's going to be a lot of support, and as we advertise this program, it'll be in people's minds moving forward. And I think it'll be successful for us to not only acquire the amenities we need to provide to the community, but also allow the community to have their voice in the park department.
I think that'd be great. I don't know. Does anybody have any history or comments or questions on this? Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea. I saw the forms. They look good. Roger may have some history or policy that we have. Go ahead, Roger.
Hey, I'm raking my brains right now in order to try to remember some of this. And it may be with regard to Lincoln Park, where there was a concern about having, plaques everywhere. Nothing definitive based upon my current brain activity, but I just wanted to express that I know this has been discussed in the past, but not recently. And somebody had a concern about, not wanting to populate the parks with memorial plaques, or maybe thinking about a situation where maybe you could have like one plaque, where you could add to it, as opposed to having plaques on every tree or a bunch of trees. So I think that'd just be something to think about, and for Jared to maybe comment on further. But I think it's a great idea to have set things for people to do, because obviously there's a need for it, or there's people that want to do it. And I think it's a very appropriate way to provide memorials, as long as it doesn't interfere with our park activities and other thoughts.
I completely agree with you. Just like too much signage, it becomes an eyesore and you kind of lose what you're originally intending. Each park would have a carrying capacity at our discretion and a replacement cycle. So.
And you can keep the discretion to us in terms of location, or at least it's going to be mutually agreeable in terms of the location of the plaque or the bench, right?
Correct. Yep.
All right. I don't know if this needs to be approved as a policy or procedure, or just go for it. Jared, what do you anybody have a comment on that? I'm in the just go for it, Jared.
Yeah, I'm in that camp too. I like the idea.
I think it's probably premature to do it as a policy, because I think there are some other issues that might be considered, but we could certainly consider that in the future. So I'd encourage Jared to explore that further, and then think about whether we want to adopt it as a policy. Another thing that's sort of related is if you think about, this came up in a discussion I had earlier today, where when you're developing a park, and sometimes wonder whether somebody would want to make a substantial contribution in order to have part of a park named after them. And that's been discussed by the board in the past. And we've talked about like in the area of land acquisition, that, the question is, well, does it have to be a total donation in order to allow or to approve the naming of a park after somebody? Do they just have to pay for contribute the land, or do they have to contribute part of the development cost? And so there again, we've never had a formal policy, but we've kind of had some informal policies that it certainly has to be a significant donation before the board would consider giving somebody naming rights for a park or a significant facility in a park. But that might be something that we could also roll into some sort of a policy statement regarding donations.
We may face that sooner rather than later. But just going back to the question at hand, and that is the memorial policy. So members of the board, you have any other comments you want us to ask Jared to put it into a short policy, with his forms and get it approved by the board so that we have a record of it? Does that make administrative sense, or some other sense that some of you may have? All right, so how's that sound, Jared? Just, take your forms and think through some of the comments you heard tonight, and it can just be a quick one page or sort of policy, I would guess, that we can then approve and have a record of.
Good. And that kind of rolls into my next update. Starting in 2021, I'd like to start the shelter reservation system. And the majority of this would be scheduled using the website. But for the same reason that people want to be memorialized and a part of this park district, they also want to share in their celebrations. And to be able to reserve a space outdoors in the era of COVID, I think is a very valuable and appealing opportunity for future birthday parties and family gatherings. And I think we have the opportunity to host those and secure these people's reservations with a shelter reservation. I suggested this as we move forward with the 2021 fee schedule. And it would be $50 for a half a day reservation, and $100 for the full day for residents, and $65 for non-residents, and $130 for the full day.
Comments, questions? Sort of the same thing. Do we want to adopt this as a policy tonight? Fill it out a little bit? Again, I think it's a great idea. It's easily done. I mean, technically, is super easy. I mean, who administers it?
The website has a lot more capabilities than we're currently exploring. So this could all be pretty automated, where it is actually the transaction happens online. It's scheduled into a calendar, and then our crews know when to place plaques reserving a shelter and pull them. And it could be pretty cut and dry without adding too much work to us.
I like that idea. I've had an inquiry probably a few months ago about reserving a shelter. So I think it's worthwhile to take a look at it, draft something up.
And not to get too deep into the weeds on it, but do we want to give people a discount if they rent for a full day rather than a half day? Like, for example, $60 for a half day, $100 for a full day, something like that, just to make it a little more attractive to go for the full day.
That is something we can explore. The only thing I was thinking is we do have a finite amount of reservable shelters. So if there's two organizations that want to have it on the same day, they could do a morning afternoon, whereas a full day reservation would just, they have it for the day.
Yeah. Right.
I would suggest that you might think about, not making it more convenient to do the whole day, because that, ties up that shelter that it can't be used by other people. Just a thought.
I know the shelters have been getting used a lot. I've sensed a couple of conflicts, people kind of looking and saying, oh, that shelter, maybe a couple instances I can remember where, a shelter was in use and I could just see somebody going the other way. Have you had any, have you guys been running into that at all? Fist fights, anything like that?
So when you say half day, whole day, is it like 4 hours and 4 hours? Is that what you're
Trying to
thinking?
remember, I think it was about 9 a.m. to 1, and then, or 10 to 2, one of those. And then the other part was about 3 to dusk. But they were equal time slots. I'm blanking right now on the exact.
Yeah, because I'm thinking if we had time blocks where it was like, a couple different people could rent it, but there was also maybe like time in the morning, time in the middle, and time in the end before it's closed, where other people might be able to use it just sporadically.
Yeah, and I did build in a time in between for cleaning and making sure the previous party didn't leave a mess, which there would be fees if that were the case. We could look at lengthening that gap in the middle, or just we could play around with that. But
I mean, having planned a lot of children's parties in the past, just looking at kind of the fee structures of what, if you go to rent like one of those party places or something, then maybe we could get some ideas about what they do in terms of, allowing for open play versus, the rented. I probably have contracts that I've signed myself that I could go and look and give you some ideas, but that's what the first thing that came to my head, because a little kid's party is usually about 3 hours total, because you like play around, you do what you're going to do, cake, presents, and then you're done, right? And
right.
So something like that. Just an idea.
Yep. That's a good point.
Okay, any other, again, there was a one pager that was, or actually a two pager that was submitted with this. So let's, all right, so let's table this, and anything you want to add to it or refine, Jared, then if you can bring it back in December, we'll also look at adopting that as a formal policy or procedure for the parks.
Right.
But it looks good.
All right, and then just a couple quick updates. We met with a stakeholders group for Overly Warman's mountain biking group. It was a good group of engaged citizens, and I think they're going to be partners in the future for trail maintenance, as well as potentially events and programming. They were very enthused and excited to have that in their backyard. Tim was present, and it was a great opportunity to meet some of the community that's excited for this, as well as Progressive Trail Design, who is our consultant that is designing and building the mountain bike trails at Overly Warman. Got off a call today from the program assessment study that's going on. Pretty good data we got, kind of reaffirmed the direction we need to go in the future. But preliminarily, one of the biggest takeaways I took is how good the level of service we are providing with our current programs are. And I think that's a testament to our staff, Mindy, and our other naturalists and part-time staff. There was not one needs improvement as far as quality of our current programming. It was all excellent or good. So that's, you usually don't get that out of a complete survey. And we were able to get over 400 responses, which is above around that 350 threshold we were hoping to get an accurate statistic. So we'll have more information on that report at the next Parks Board meeting.
So that's from the survey from a month or two ago. There was just a survey this week or late last week. Where will that fit into the report?
Yep, that online survey is still going on until Thanksgiving, and that'll just kind of be compared to the actual statistical data. And we can just match trends. Your online survey is going to be those that are, looking and already engaged with the town, whereas I'm not sure the means of the other collection, but it did have a split of residents who do use our programming and those who do not. So
I see. So that's the same survey that is being given in that statistically significant study.
Correct.
But since I'm not, I took it, but I haven't been chosen in the statistically significant study, right? So
yeah.
Got it. Okay.
All right. And one more update from me. I spoke with Butler, Fairman, and Sewerfurt for the Starkey SP3 stairs, and they should have design documents ready for bid by the end of the year. We signed into that updated agreement with the last Parks Board meeting, and so that's moving forward. From the Director of Maintenance Services report, you'll see that we did have a little bit of water over the trail. That's something we're actively looking into and figuring out how we can plan to mitigate that in the future. Also, we've started partnering with Public Works and Streets and incorporating the leaves into our garden plots. We got some surveys back from the garden plot users, and one of the biggest improvements we saw was that the soil conditions need to improve. So by tilling in that organic material, we're going to have a better quality soil that we can offer to the public next year. And we're going to internalize some of those practices to keep that consistent for years to come. And from the naturalist report, we did have 66 dogs for the Tails on the Trails program and 29 completed. I think those 29 would be perfect candidates to be a part of the ribbon cutting for our dog park that's going to go online in the next couple of months. So that's exciting news there.
Dog park's looking good. Looking good. I was out there Monday or Tuesday, and yeah, doing great.
Starting to look like a dog park. Yep.
Yeah, there are a bunch of dogs. Yeah, there's some guy with a couple of dogs who was already using it. I think John Stair or somebody was saying whenever they're out there, there's always a couple of dogs running around already.
I was out there this evening, and there was a father with their young toddler, and the toddler was using the all of the structures of the dog. So it's getting a lot of use other than dogs.
Well, that's good for now.
Yeah.
All right. I do have two more things to talk about, but they might go into the new business and old business sections better. One of which is Boone County REMC has approached us to provide free high-speed internet in Heritage Trail Park. Not really any strings attached, except for they want us to sign an agreement that they can service their equipment. Let me share the document. There really is no charge for the renting or use of the equipment. They are just on this campaign of providing these free hotspots. They already have one at the fairgrounds, which is free to the public outside of when it is fair time, at which point they do charge. But I think it would be nice to not only promote REMC, but also offer this to our citizens. So when they want to work outside rather than in a classroom or in a workspace, they would have that opportunity. And also we could program if we had internet out there. So I'm not sure if this is the first time this is
Any
coming.
questions or issues that people see with this?
I think it's a great idea.
Tim, could I interject on this?
Sure.
We have equipment going in for the door controls for the gate and the cameras that are going to be located there. And if we could ask Jared regarding this to see if this would be something that they would allow us to add onto that service, that would be most appreciated and would save us a monthly fee for the internet connection that we were planning on putting out there.
That's a great point. Wow. And the reason this is timely is because they're about to lay down that fiber. So they want to do it while their techs are in the area. So kind of two birds. And they also mentioned potentially at Mulberry Fields, asking us if we wanted free hotspots there as well as they get into that area in Q2 of next year.
So Boone REMC must service the old rural area. Roger, maybe you can help me here. And Mulberry, is Mulberry in the rural section of the town?
Yeah, REMC and Duke handles most of downtown Zionsville, but when you get out, for example, in my neighborhood of Oak Ridge, half of my neighborhood is Duke Energy, and the other half is Boone REMC. So they certainly service a lot of customers in our area, and being a part of the Indiana Rural Electric Cooperatives, it's a great organization owned by its members, and so I think it's a great idea, and sounds like it's going to help us out with some IT issues as well.
All right, great. Do you want to do?
I
I
don't
am
know
a
if we
member.
still have
I'm
cameras.
a user and a member.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever put cameras at the skate park. You know, that's a whole nother issue about when you put up cameras, then sometimes users of the park think that that's providing some sort of security, and it's not, because, you know, these cameras are not being monitored by anybody. They're just there so that we can potentially, you know, replay a digital feed in order to see what happened after something's reported. But you know, that's another potential connection for something that might provide, you know, technology enhancements for, I'm not saying park safety, because again, these cameras are not monitored. It's not going to take the place of parental supervision and things like that. But you know, if you do have a problem somewhere and you want to go back and look to see who might have been there at a certain point in time, that can be very helpful to the police and other agencies. So probably be something to talk to the police department about as well.
Are there plans for? We don't have cameras with planned for this. You didn't say a camera, did you, Jared? For just a Wi-Fi service,
Right.
and Joe doesn't have. We don't have cameras for the dog park, do we? Or do we?
We do.
We do. Okay. So
They're focused specifically on the dog park.
And there are also existing cameras at Mulberry Fields that could potentially become web-based.
no, I didn't realize that we had some at Mulberry Fields.
They were put in originally when the park was built. There was cameras at the skate park, and then a few along in the parking lot areas. The current system is non-functional. It needs to be updated. I believe lightning had gotten into the system a few times, along with Mother Nature and other spots. So there you go.
Okay, so Jared, you can just talk to REMC about Joe's points and if they want to incorporate that into the agreement or not, and then just run it by Roger real quick. I don't think you need to bring it back to the board if
Okay.
Roger's okay with the agreement.
Perfect. All right, and then one last thing that's not on the agenda. I'll share this. One second, sorry. Got 100 tabs up here. Okay. Okay, Tricia and I met with the contractor out at the tennis courts. And while we were discussing what that resurfacing was going to look like, it came to our attention that the pickleball court was below the grade of the tennis courts, whereas their water will run off and fill the pickleball courts and potentially infiltrate underneath. And you know how that will go as far as cracks and accelerating that. So there is the potential to raise the grade of the pickleball court to be flush with the existing tennis ball courts. And I think we would have a longer lasting setup down there until it's time to resurface again in the future, 10 years, 15 years, whatever that might be. So it's about $4,600 for that removal of the asphalt, making it up to grade, and then surfacing.
So is this a change order, in effect,
Yes.
a change order to our current contract with this contractor?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, and I know Tricia McClellan was on the call earlier, so feel free to jump in, Tricia.
Yeah, the major difference with the base bid, we were adding asphalt for just half of the pickleball court. So we'd be using the old asphalt for the other half. So in addition to it being lower than the tennis courts and the pickleball court, it's going to have a seam, you know, between the new and the old. And at first that's going to be just fine, but eventually there is the potential for those two to settle at different rates. So when you do the entire court, you do get rid of that potential that could come up in future years.
Okay, thank you. For the public, Tricia McClellan is a principal at Rundell Ernstberger and Associates and is the designer for this project involving our tennis court and practice court, which is being converted to a pickleball court. Any board members have questions or comments about this proposal? I think technically, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, Jared would have the ability to sign this change order for up to, since it's under $5,000.
Right.
But any questions for Jared on this proposed change order for the tennis court, practice court? All right. There are no objections, Jared. I think that's a implied go for you, green light.
All right. That is the end.
Assuming you have the money in your budget. So, but
Yep.
I think you do here at the end of the year.
Yeah, we should be okay.
Anything else, Mr. Superintendent?
That is the end of my staff updates.
All right, then. Anything more? I don't know if Dave Moliterno, our Director of Maintenance Services, or Mindy Murdoch, our Park Naturalists, are on the call, or if there's anything they wanted to report directly, or you on their behalf, Jared? Again, you covered a couple of things from them.
Yeah, I just maintenance as usual. No, nothing too big surprise-wise. We did lose a couple trees, but and then programs are still going well outdoors safely despite the pandemic.
All right. So let's move on to Park Board Attorney Roger Burris and your report.
Thank you. First item is we got the lease agreement on the new golf carts for next year. And that agreement was a good document. Just as a reminder, it's a 5-year lease and we're trading in our existing golf carts, which are 2012 golf carts, and getting a pretty good trade-in value, which will then reduce the lease payments. So the golf course will be paying $4,800 a year for the next 5 years. New golf carts in 2021. Under that lease, we still have to maintain the golf carts and insure them. Jared, that's something we'll want to check to make sure. There's a form in the set of documents I sent to you and Tim regarding the insurance obligations. But the other thing to keep in mind is that, in 5 years, we're going to end up either renewing the lease or starting from scratch. And at that point, without a trade-in, it'll cost a bit more. So just something to plan ahead for in terms of budgetary issues. Any questions on the golf carts? Okay. On the dog park, I reviewed the rules that you approved last month and made some suggestions to Mindy, so I assume she's followed through on those so that we're ready to go when that's completed.
Can I ask what the schedule is for the dog park? I guess it's almost, gates were going on, and I guess then it's the card reader and some of the IT stuff. And when do we start selling memberships? What's the general time schedule now for it?
There's a couple moving parts still involving the planning department with the permits, when they'll be ready, when IT will be ready. But I'm optimistic for, the start of 2021. Maybe get your annual membership right on the 1st, and that'd be kind of cool. So.
Okay. Ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay. As I reported last month on Overly Warman Park, we got the final donation of the majority of the land from Lennar, the developer. And I held off on technically it's a donation to the Parks Department. And anytime you get a donation, Indiana statutes say that you should pass a motion to formally accept the donation. The reason for that is so that, nobody can make a donation of something that might have liability issues or other problems, against your will. So I've had an opportunity to check the title insurance and review other things, and it all looks good. So if somebody could make a motion to accept the recent donation of 42 acres of parkland by Lennar Builders, I would appreciate that.
I'll make a motion that we accept the 42 acres that will become Overly Warman Park.
Is there a second to member John Stairs' motion?
I'll second that.
Wayne Bivens has seconded the motion. Any discussion? Do a roll call vote. Wallenberg,
Aye.
Bivens,
Aye.
Stair,
Aye.
Pack,
Aye.
Solovich,
Aye.
Bidwell,
Aye.
and I also vote aye, so the motion unanimously carries to accept the
Well, hopefully there will be more land donations in the future. I was involved in opening the bids for the Overly Warman Park. We're going to talk about that so enough on that. Back to the land acquisition projects. I think we're almost complete with the Notariani property. His attorney contacted me recently and had a few questions and a few changes, but we're pretty much there in terms of what it's going to take to acquire that property. And this would be the final piece we need for the South Rail Trail extension. Notariani is real close to the entrance to the Von Terra subdivision. He wants to make sure that people are not wandering off into his property, and we took a look at that today. I think we have a plan for that. So we started out, there was a significant question about how much land we needed for our trail, and we ended up agreeing and concluding that if we acquired a 30-foot strip from the Notarianis, that would be sufficient for our purposes. And we had appraisals done. Notarianis have asked for a little bit more than the appraised value. I think there's enough room to accommodate that. There's also some issues about us paying for a survey and maybe some staking. So I think all those can be resolved. We've had good discussions with them. And so what I would ask is if you would consider a motion to authorize us to finalize the deal with the 30-foot strip from Notariani's. That is almost it's almost 1/4 of an acre. And if you would authorize the expenditure of up to $25,000, I think we can get that done.
Is there a motion to authorize who should be authorized to do this? The president with working with the attorney with you?
Yeah, you could make it president or superintendent
Okay,
working with me.
So we're looking for a motion for the president or the superintendent working with our park board attorney to complete the acquisition of the Notariani parcel for up to $25,000. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Member Bivens has made the motion to complete this acquisition. Is there a second?
Second.
John Wallenberg seconds it. Any further discussion or questions? And I'll do a roll call vote on the motion. John Wallenberg,
Aye.
Wayne Bivens,
Aye.
John Stair,
Aye.
Jill Pack,
Aye.
John Solovich,
Aye.
Aaron Bidwell.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so the motion unanimously carries.
Thank you. I will try to get that wrapped up before our next meeting. Another property acquisition is the south extension, the two trailhead properties at Zionsville Road, again, just south of the entrance to Bonterra, and discussions with one attorney who represents both of those property owners, just in a significant election, which he won. So I think he's in a pretty good mood these days. And I've talked to him recently. We've still got some negotiations to do, but hopefully we can get those wrapped up and get those properties under the way to acquisition as well. So still some work to be done, but will be on my list after Notariani is wrapped up.
And I would note that under old business, we'll have an update on that South Rail Trail Extension project, which includes all three of those parcels. So that'll come later in the meeting.
Right. My last item is an update on Holiday Road and Holiday Nature Preserve. There's still questions about the Holiday Road vacation, but those are being resolved, I think, pretty soon. The mayor's office has been involved and been very helpful. And also, just kind of as a reminder, and I sent this to Jared an hour or so ago, is that a year ago we had agreed for the Holiday Nature Preserve, which we own 50 acres of land. It's undeveloped, and it's up north of Holiday Farms. We had agreed to lease the tillable portions of that to a farmer for 2020. And so I think I don't know if I assume he's harvested and that's all done. We received about $5,000 if he's made both his payments. From doing that, we figured, if we knew we weren't going to develop that park in 2020, we might as well generate some income from it. So we've done that. So the question now is, are we going to develop that park in 2021? In which case, we certainly won't want to do another crop lease. So I haven't discussed that with Jared, but just wanted to make everyone aware that that's the situation with that property. And hopefully we'll be in a position to begin development of that property in the near future. But if not, then we could do another crop lease, I would think. Any questions on that?
My opinion is that it'll probably be 2022, but it is possible that things, if things go really well with the negotiations for the Creekside Path and the way out to Pleasant View Drive, that could accelerate. I think our budget, we moved that to 2022, didn't we, Jared? But it's possible it could be on. So I would not do the lease for this coming year. We may be starting to tramp around out there as well sometime in the fall.
Okay. Well, it's all a question of timing and money. So just let me know if anything changes. Okay, that's all I have unless there are questions.
One quick question. So the Henkeline offer was tendered, but no response, no news on that.
Yeah, no news on that. I mean, they continue to deal with some personal issues, and we continue to just be patient and willing to act when necessary. So I think we've done everything we can at this point, and hopefully something will pan out there, but it just depends on things that are beyond our control.
All right, thank you, Roger. All right, then let's move on to new business. And Jared, if you would like to present a proposal regarding the Zion Nature Center and the library.
Yeah, so Mindy and myself met with library staff over this past month and discussed the possibilities of renting out one of their rooms that are underutilized for the new home of the Nature Center. And given most of our options at this time involving either using the municipal building that we're in right now as administration moves over to town hall, or finding another space, this seems like the most appropriate to keep us in the eye of the public and also allow for future partnerships with the library. As you saw with the story walk, it was successful, and those collaborations I hope will continue. And being under the same roof, that would allow a lot more opportunity, not only to combine their literature and their programming with ours, but also for us to drive people to the library as well and increase their patronage. In the proposal, you'll see that it was recommended to offer $350 as rent. That would basically cover our utilities and make it so we're not really a burden to the library and utilizing their resources. It would be possible to get access to their Wi-Fi and have our information so we could utilize town systems over there. We would only be utilizing one classroom where we would host most of the exhibits. And Mindy did a quick sketch out of that space, and it looks like most enclosures would fit, with a few exceptions where they could be placed in other parts of the library, which library staff seem more than excited about as well. Currently, the library does not allow, outside vendors and fees to take place indoors, but my plan for 2021 is to move most of our registration and transactions onto the website while working with IT. So there is a way around that. And due to COVID, we would still program outside of the library for more of our programs, and the actual library building would be more of just where the enclosures are, where people could visit and staff could kind of host them while they enjoy the enclosures. It seems like both sides are more than eager to get this moving, and if the board is willing, we could work out the agreements and present it to their board and move forward with this.
What about the critters?
Yeah.
The critters would be, the husbandry would still be from Park Nature Center staff, just as it has been. They would be supervised by a staff when the Nature Center is open. We would be allowed to be open more than just 2 days a week, potentially. We could work on our hours and have more availability. Any enclosures that are outside of that main room would have locks on them, so they couldn't be tampered with when they're out of sight of staff. It seems all the critters will fit. It's maybe the giant tree and some of the taxidermy that might have to be put into storage for a couple of years while we figure out a more permanent solution.
That was going to be my question. So you actually have less space to operate in, is that right?
Yes, it will mainly just be the enclosures of the animals.
Yeah.
We're not going to have all of our cool taxidermy or displays. The bees would be one that we would have to give back to a beehive and restart that in a couple of years when we have a more permanent location. But we're coming up to a pinch. The current Nature Center is failing at a slow rate, and there's going to be some major costs with that building in the future. So whether we want to incur those as tenants or we want to allow the school to take over their facility and use it how they will, that's really where we're at.
When COVID ends, how would would we want to use the facility at least for part of the day for summer camp programming, or at that point would we be permitted to have program attendees inside, and is that going to be easily done? Or
there are other rooms within the library. I imagine worst case scenario, we reserve a second room that's attached to the proposed room for the $5 nonprofit rate. to host the camp. So it'd be a minimal overhead if we did need that space indoors. And I believe they have a courtyard on one side of the library as well. So they might be willing to allow us to operate on their grounds. So yes, there are things we'd have to discuss and work out moving forward as this partnership evolved over the years.
That was my
Well,
question. So was the space
library is-
underutilized because of COVID, or was it always underutilized?
Historically, just underutilized. I believe some Boy Scout or Cub Scout groups were using it irregularly. But for the most part, it is just kind of left open and lights shut off, door closed.
So the library is a great partner, a great culture, especially of programming and marketing their programming, getting the word out. They're very good at that. So we've done the programs with them in the past. So, they seem very enthusiastic, and likewise, again, I think for our interim purposes, they will be a great partner for us.
Is there a lease for breaking with the school, or has it just been kind of open?
It's been kind of open.
Yep.
Mindy and I had a discussion maybe 4 months ago with the chief financial officer and then the chief facilities officer of the school. So they're cool about it, but we have a major plumbing issue coming up, roofing issues coming up, and they desire that building for other purposes, and they weren't going to kick us out willy-nilly. So, but clearly they wanted us gone in the medium term. So I think this is a great solution. What do we need from Jared to finalize this? Or Jared, what do you need from the board? Maybe I should ask, what do you need from us to finalize?
I guess whether it's a motion to enter into a MOU or an agreement to present to their board, and then with some revising and edits, we could come to the final document that we vote on.
Out of all the discussions or all the options that we were considering, I think this is by far the best one. So I would be happy to make that motion that we attempt to enter into an agreement with the library to temporarily move our nature center there.
And I second.
John, are you authorizing Jared to finalize this, or would you like the board to see and approve the final agreement?
I think that I'd be happy with Jared seeking to finalize it. I mean, based on the parameters that we've discussed here tonight.
Yeah, I think John Solovich was the seconder of the motion. Are you agreeable with that?
Yes.
We authorize Jared to finalize and sign the memorandum of understanding?
Yes, I do.
All right. So any questions or discussion? All right. Let's have a vote then. John Wollenberg.
Aye.
Wayne Bivens.
Aye.
John Stair.
Aye.
Jill Pack.
Aye.
John Solovich.
Aye.
Aaron Bidwell.
Aye.
I also vote aye. So the motion to authorize our superintendent to finalize a memorandum of understanding with the library consistent with our discussion and proposal that he has made to us tonight unanimously carries. All right. Anything else on the Nature Center? Where tonight, Jared, did you want to insert the hoop, the community garden proposal?
It should have been next. Yep.
Okay. Go ahead. So there's a proposal, that relates to our community gardening, and I'll take it away, Jared. And that was part of our packet that you might have seen.
If you had an opportunity to look in your packet, this is the brainchild of Mindy. So there is an existing hoop greenhouse on our property that we acquired. It's in a little bit of disarray. It needs some repair, but it would provide the perfect opportunity to program gardening and other programming out of that facility at Heritage Trail Park, right next to our existing community garden. They would complement each other well as it would also provide us the opportunity to potentially grow native plugs and just really spread awareness and about how residents can incorporate natives into their backyards or pollinator species or teach children how to garden. The opportunities are kind of endless. And the fact that we already have this asset with a little elbow grease, we could get it up and running. It was approved by the fire marshal. We got the thumbs up there. We would have to limit the amount of programming we could do, but it does beat, or it is another opportunity to program while we're looking for locations to program out of the library, if that is the course we take. So,
what would the timing of the proposal be? Because it's tied into, I mean, the schematic is tied into the parking lot extension that's a part of Heritage Trail Park Phase 2, which is being studied right now.
Correct. So we would incorporate it with all of that. The only change to the current plans would be to use a little bit more concrete to get from the parking lot with an ADA ramp so that we could make this facility ADA compliant with a crushed stone path and also have ADA compliant beds near the hoop house. So we could offer that to all abilities. And I've already floated that idea with Tricia, with REA. So they're incorporating that into their future planning as we're about at 50%, I believe, on Phase 2.
Okay. Any questions of Jared on Mindy's and Jared's proposal for the Enabling Community Gardening Program? Wayne is our master gardener among us, I think. My wife is as well, so she's going to be very interested in this.
Yeah, that really sounds nice. I guess I'm a little confused on when you say the parking lot and you're connecting it to the greenhouse or hoop house. What parking lot are you referring to? Are you referring to the new parking lot they're building at Heritage Trails?
Correct. Yeah. With the extension, there'll be a roundabout, and we could fit in an ADA space that has an easy path to this new hoop house, which will be next to the existing gardens. And if you,
Oh, okay.
yes. So it's a little pushed back from everything that's there right now.
Okay.
And when I asked Mindy, it sounded like the cost of moving and refurbing the hoop house is under a couple of $1,000s. I may be wrong there, but you know, it's basically using plastic material hoop house, and there's some refurb, and but it's something that our maintenance guys could pretty much pull off all on their own. Is that correct?
Yeah, we could handle it within operating to cover the costs of refurbishing and then hopefully transportation as well.
Any other questions? So what would you like from us, Jared? Would you like us to formally approve this and make it a part of Heritage Trail Phase 2 design?
Yep.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the proposed Enabling Community Gardening Program at Heritage Trail Park and to incorporate it into our pending Phase 2 design work that REA is undertaking?
I would move that.
Jill Pack is so moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
John Stair has made the second. Any other further questions or comments? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. John Wallenberg.
Aye.
Wayne Bivens.
Aye.
John Stair.
Aye.
Jill Pack.
Aye.
John Salovich.
Aye.
Aaron Bidwell.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so the motion to create the enabling community gardening program as proposed in our materials and to incorporate it into our Heritage Park Phase 2 design has unanimously carried. All right, we are ready to move on to the Overly Warman construction bid. So yeah, this is,
Right.
oh, go ahead, Roger. Did you have a?
Yeah, I just had a comment that I was trying to get in when we finished up the discussion about the Nature Center moving to the library. I just wanted to disclose that I'm the attorney for the Library Leasing Corporation, but I don't see any conflict of interest here. You know, it seems to me to be a situation where both organizations could benefit from this arrangement. And as I told Jared, anytime two governmental entities enter into an agreement, they can basically do what both entities think is appropriate. I just wanted to disclose that I have a relationship there, a professional relationship that I don't see as a problem, but I wanted to disclose it on the record. Thank you.
Thank you for disclosing that, Roger. All right, let's move on to Overly Warman Park. And for this part of the presentation, will be Tricia McClellan of REA will be taking part in this. So again, we're at a milestone moment here with the development of Overly Warman Park. And Roger will give us some history on this, but we have got some very, yeah, some nice bids action on our work that REA has been doing for us. So I will ask Jared to try to guide us through what we need here in terms of evaluating these bids that we have. Go ahead, Jared.
All right. Yeah, so we did receive 4 bids for the Overly Warman construction. Due to a missing documentation required by Indiana statute, we did have to dismiss 1 bid. So that left us with 3 rather competitive bids. And the direction of who we choose from this bidding process is determined kind of by what we choose as an organization, as a board tonight. There really are 2 avenues we can explore. And we'll get into that a little bit, but we'll just, let me pull up this presentation real quick.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to have Roger give us a little background on the standards that we're going to be applying before we get to the nuts and bolts of this. Do you want to do that, Jared?
Yeah, let's have that.
Just so we have a little history, and so especially since some of the members of the board are new and we haven't really had a bid project of this size for some time, so it'd be good to just get a little primer and history from Roger.
Okay. So, you know, this really is a very significant time in Zionsville Parks Department history, because we have not done a lot of you know, built from scratch park projects of this size, funded with a bond issuance, which happened right at the end of last year. So the bonds were about $3.5 million for this project. And by the way, the previous project we had was Mulberry Fields. That was a $6 million bond issuance in, I think, 2006 or 2007. And that was other, you know, park projects of this size are always unique. And, you know, depend a lot on what you had to work with and what you want to do with it. But they're just unlike the typical building projects where you're building a building, you know, for like town hall or a library or a school. Park projects are all different, you know, because it's mostly earth moving and landscaping and a little bit of buildings sometimes, you know, playground equipment. But you know, we've worked with REA, Rundell Ernstberg and Associates on other projects like Elm Street Green, and they're very good at what they do. So as an example, you know, they estimates of what they thought the cost of each of these things would be, and their estimates were very close to what the bids came in for. That's always a good sign. I've had situations where the bids were just so above the estimates that you know, we just couldn't do it. So everything's looking good so far, but when you get these bids, because Indiana law requires you to award the contract to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. And those 5 words mean a lot. I mean, in this case, we've got a good example of a non-responsive bidder, because the bid from Boyle Construction Management, well, it was didn't seem like an unreasonable bid, but they didn't include one of the things that's absolutely required. They didn't provide any of their financial information, and that is a big problem for them and for us, because we can't consider their bid, and there's nothing we can do about it. Some things you get one chance, and if you don't get it right, you don't get another chance. But we still have 3 good bids from companies that we're familiar with, and I think Tricia McClellan is more familiar with these companies than I am, and so. But basically, your job is to award the bid to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder, and I can, you know, if we need to get into details of that, we can, but I think the long and the short of it is that the low bidder in this case ends up depending on which alternates you select. So there was a base bid, and then there were 9 alternates. So I think Jared and Tricia are going to go through some of that to help you make decisions tonight, hopefully, about which alternates we want to choose. And then that should lead to, hopefully, a clear answer on who is the lowest bidder. But it's also possible for you not to choose the lowest bidder. But if you do that, then you have to explain that and document it in the minutes, because that would be kind of an unusual thing. An example of that might be where the lower bidder, but you were not comfortable with their ability to complete the project or something like that, like maybe their financial statement was not very strong. I mean, it'd have to be a good reason not choose the lowest bidder. So hopefully we're not going to get into a lot of that tonight, but if we need to, we will. But at this point, I'll kick it back to Jared and to Tricia to explain where we think we're going on this.
Well said, Roger. So like Roger said, we did receive 3 very competitive bids. As you can see from the base bids, His Construction, J.C. Ripberger, and Brandt. In that comparison, it appears HIS Constructors and J.C. Ripberger are the 2 lower bids. So moving from that, we have these alternatives that were included in the bid documents. And I'm hoping Tricia can shed a little bit more light on what each of those alternatives were as we consider them.
Sure. So just to review, the base bid did not include the pedestrian bridge, and we had 2 different options for the pedestrian bridge. We do have access down into the park without the pedestrian bridge, including ADA access. But so the first alternate was a prefab bridge, and that's the bridge that you saw in the rendering that Jared had up here before this slide. But it's the metal truss bridge. It would be weathering steel, so it's going to have kind of that sort of copper, sort of brownish color after it starts to weather. It would be 10 feet wide, and it would be ADA accessible. The second alternate was the suspension bridge. which is exactly what it sounds like. It is a suspension bridge, so it would have, you know, a little bit of sway to it because of the cables that would be holding up the bridge. That bridge would be 5 feet wide rather than 10. With the sway, it wouldn't be ADA accessible. And our thinking was if we're choosing this bridge, we would want people to be walking their bikes across the bridge rather than riding them. So narrowing it down, you know, having the signage that would tell people to walk their bikes, and then also to help with the cost of the bridge. Because we, from looking at the materials, thought this bridge might be a little more expensive. So, you know, the making it a little more narrow did help with that. Alternate number 3 was an option for site grading near the playground. There's an area just north east of the playground where a trail takes off towards the disc golf. And with current grading now, it's kind of in the middle of the hillside, so you would feel a little bit like you're walking in a canyon. You know, the slope comes up on both sides. So alternate 3 with site grading B actually smooths that out on both sides so that it's much less like walking through a canyon. Alternate 4, site grading C, actually takes that grading a little bit further and smooths it out towards the south, where in the future we could have another entrance coming if we were able to work with some agreements with the southern property and have another entrance coming into the parking lot, which would relieve the entrance, you know, traffic coming through the subdivision if we're able to do that. But this grading allows us to grade it out, basically grade that hill out. So if that does become an opportunity, the site is already graded for that. It just makes a lot less impact on the improvements that you have there if you come in later to put in that additional entrance. Alternate number 5, planting B, actually goes with site grading B. So it's just additional planting that would go along with that additional grading. Same with alternate 6 in terms of alternate C goes along with the site grading for C. So just some additional plantings that would happen with both of those two. Alternate 7 was a different boardwalk rail. So rather than a typical sort of wood picket looking handrail, we had a welded wire mesh kind of rail in between each of the posts. So it just gives it a little more transparent look when you're looking out over the boardwalk rail. So that's what those costs would be to go from the standard wood picket to the welded wire. Alternate number 8, in place of the base bid has engineered wood mulch. So it is ADA accessible, but it looks like wood mulch. Alternate number 8 would replace that wood mulch with safety surfacing. So this solid poured in place rubber safety surfacing. And then alternate number 9, currently the base bid does not have any electric on site. And most of the parks are open dawn to dusk. So that kind of is purposeful not to have the lighting on there. We do have a solar and wind light that will light up the parking lot. But this alternate would actually bring electric to the 2 shelters, including lighting in the shelters, but then also having some receptacles. So if you had events that you wouldn't have to have generators, you could actually have the electric in the shelters that are out there. So that's what those costs are.
Thank you, Patricia. So first and foremost, the biggest question is whether the Parks Board wants to include a bridge with this project. I will make the statement that it does appear that historically through the concept and planning of this project, that a bridge was always incorporated in the design, and it's kind of always been the vision. And professionally speaking, I think that bridge would elevate this park from just a great park to an actual destination where people are going to ride from the rail trail to see and experience. It offers opportunities for birding and viewpoints. When you go to the site and look out, you would be able to see the mountain bikers as they pass by and look over the park. And I think it would be a really neat, unique feature to the park that would just elevate its level of service, which is what we want to give to the citizens. But with that said, there are some funding considerations as we go through these alternatives. Looking at the budget, the initial overly warm bond was 3.4 million. We also have a DNR grant for 200,000, and we're able to use some of our park impact fees with this project, which brings us to a total of 3.6. Now, we also do have the non-reverting capital, which is over 1.3 million at this time, which has just been saved annually from our operating budget, kind of as a rainy day. So there are funds for this project to expand beyond that 3.6. So I think the first thing I would ask the board is to decide whether we want to include a bridge as you look at these costs. And we'll move on from there. The rest of the alterations would kind of fall into place. If we went without a bridge, we could afford most of them. But then we also come upon the problem of we had a bond for 3.6 million and we didn't spend it all. So what would we do with those remaining funds and how would that be used as well? So just some things to consider.
Let me interject a little bit of history and then make a suggestion on how to maybe expedite the decision making or the discussion here. So history-wise, remember, when I first came on the board 5-6 years ago, I mean, one of the first months of my time on the board was when the owner of this property, Kanda Warman, came with the Lennar folks and said, we've got 80, 90 acres of floodland. Would you like it for a park? And so it was like, wow. And took a month or two to think about that. Everybody's very, very positive. And the more we thought about it, the more excited we got as you thought about, you're on Eagle Creek. This is a clean fill operation. So you're rehabilitating kind of a distressed but very pretty site. Some of us have gone over there. As Jared and Tricia took me over there on Monday, and then I took John Stair and Roger and John Wallenberg over there today. And it's huge. It's unbelievable with these hillocks, and there's a lot of construction material, and much of that will remain under the base bid. And in a sense, you're creating lemonade out of lemons by incorporating mountain bike trails around these big concrete construction pieces. But also, you've got the beauty of the creek. You've got a wonderful pond in the middle of all of this, and a lot of varied terrain that will make fantastic rustic trails, will make fun disc golf. And again, it's always so huge when you get over there. So if any other park board members want to get over there, this is the perfect time of year to see it, because I've been over there a couple of times in the spring and the summer, and it's just so overgrown you couldn't see anything. But right now, you can see a fair amount. So let me suggest that in looking, John Stair and I and Roger and Jared and Trish talked on Monday to try to figure out how to simplify or sort this out. And let me make a suggestion that Brant is always, they're too high, so they're not going to meet the lowest bid requirement. So we are looking at HIS and Ripburger. And we'll want to ask Trish what she thinks about them. I mean, we want to get that opinion from her. But in terms of the quantity or the value and what we want to look at, let me suggest that the site grading B and C and the planting B and C are kind of peanuts and pretty equal between HIS and Ripburger, so we can add them at the end after we make our decision. The boardwalk rail is going to be too expensive compared to what was estimated. And the safety surface is also too expensive for what was estimated. And the shelter lighting may or may, we can make a decision on that at the end. So what I suggest we focus on are, what do we want? Base bid only, base bid plus prefab bridge, the one that Jared showed you the picture of, or 3, base bid plus suspension bridge. And if we make that decision, it's either going to be Ripburger or HIS. And there's some funny things that are going on. Ripburger's the cheapest by $300,000 on the base bid. HIS wins and is $80,000 lower if you add the prefab. And Ripburger comes back to win it again if you decide on the suspension bridge. So again, I suggest that we focus on those 3. And I'd also say financially that we're in good shape. We have $3.7 million budgeted for this, really, is what it amounts to. And if you looked at the prefab bridge plus base down at the bottom, the green under HIS, that's $3.7 million. There'd be a couple of $100,000 extra for the mountain bike builder, or $100,000 for them, and some REA expenses. But those could be paid even out of 2021 capital. We've got $200,000 that is in our capital budget for this year that is going to go unspent just because things have gotten deferred out. So that right away could be used for that $200,000 expense. So that gives you a sense. Obviously, we can save if we don't think the bridge is the way to go. You've got a base bid, and you're under budget, so you've got a lot of room to add things if you want, or maybe I don't know what we do with the extra money. And I would say that with the suspension bridge, that 3.7 goes up to 3.9 million, and then you have to say, okay, we got an extra $200,000. Where are we going to find that? What gets postponed or what gets deferred while we, use this extra, to fund or source this extra $200,000 we need. So that's my suggestion for the discussion.
Okay, so I have a question. So it's been a while since I looked at the presentation website that we have out there for the questionnaire for everyone. And if I remember right, I think it's showing a suspension bridge, and it feels like we've led that direction. If the memory serves, I'm going by memory. That's one thing I was wondering. But the prefab bridge.
That is exactly correct. So we've always, we've showed recently the last year or two, the prefab bridge. So that same picture that Jared just showed you, has been in the current newspaper. That's been in our website. I mean, that's on our website talking about the bridge. So we have always had a bridge in our phase 1. Originally when this was conceived and we had a public charrette process 3-4 years ago, we did have the bridge, and we broke the project down into 4 or 5 phases, but the bridge was always intended to be a sort of a signature piece that was a part of phase 1. At the end, when we got the bond, we really are getting phase 1, 2, 3, and maybe even 4 of our original phase construction all at once, all at the beginning. But we knew that, I mean, Trish identified correctly that, there's always the possibility that your bids are going to come in much higher than what you expected. And what are you going to do then? So we created the bridges as add features on the bids.
So just one thing, and I'll be done. The one thing I like about the bridge you're showing is multi-use. We're not going to have to be chasing people. Hey, don't ride a bike on it. Everyone can use it, and there's continuity between that bridge and the bridge that's at the entry into Zionsville at Lions Park. So I like the continuity and the usefulness being 10 feet, and everyone gets to use it no matter what. So.
Okay, other comments, suggestions, questions?
Yeah,
If not, you think of your comments, and go ahead, Wayne.
Did I understand to say that the suspension bridge would be about half the width of this one? 5 feet, is that right?
That's right, it's 5 feet. wide.
Okay.
And it has a wood deck. This one, the prefab would have a concrete deck. So the suspension bridge really is more of a kind of, I mean, it's huge. It's still 200-foot span. But, you know, backwoods, yeah, you know, suspension cables holding it up, wood deck type of feel.
Let me ask you one comment while we have the picture in front of us. Note the rail trail over on the far right. Trish estimates that that's about 50 feet elevated above the lower of the two asphalt paths, or the asphalt path in the middle. And that the hill on the left, the entry top, if you will, is going to be about 35 feet higher than that middle asphalt path. So, you know, you're coming down from the rail trail, I don't know, 5 to 8 feet, and then there's a little bit of drop on the bridge. But, you know, it's difficult to get this feeling for how high both the rail trail is and how high that hill is and will be. There'll be some earth moved to create a hill that will permit the paths to swirl down. So that's a little background.
I have a thought to share, Tim, and you know, you and I have discussed this, but I'll throw it out to the rest of the group. I do understand that the bridge has always been part of the design from the beginning, and I respect the thought that it is a signature feature and that it would certainly stand out in the park. However, I don't think that there is a benefit there to our constituents who are going to use the park. If we just have the path going down to the park, we are ADA compliant and we have access to the park that doesn't require the bridge. And I think given the financials, if we are stretching our budget to include this bridge, you know, maybe to the breaking point, I'd rather be on the other side of that and have some money left over that we can introduce some other aspects into the park. Like perhaps we could bring electricity to the shelter or improve the shelter area, improve the lighting, you know, do some other things, or put in the safety surface underneath the playground, put a good railing on the boardwalk. I mean, I think there are other things we could do if we didn't have the bridge. And if the bridge is not necessary to the entryway of the park, I would be in favor of striking the bridge and just going with the base project.
Okay, other comments, questions?
So it's not needed for entry, it's just purely aesthetics?
If you look at this picture and you look over on the right, there is a path traversing down from the top, that is from the rail trail, and that comes down, that is ADA compliant, and it would then at some point circle around and hit the other paved paths. You would still have our mound with the plaza up on top. You would have the ability to add a bridge later. I don't know if you would. I mean, that would cost more probably if and when you did that. But yeah, so it's a second additional ADA way to get into the park. It's going to be a very inviting way to get into the park. I would also note that if you look over at the steps, look over in the very top right, you'll see some steps coming down. And then at the bottom of that, there's a ramp going off, and it goes off of the frame. But that is, that's just going up 8 feet to the rail trail. So that's why that is ADA compliant. You could have a wheelchair come down that little ramp from the rail trail, and then you would cross the bridge.
So it does provide it is a secondary entrance. It does, another advantage is it is closer to the Von Terra, the folks that would be coming from Von Terra up the rail trail. Of course, they can get to the park, near the playground area. But if you remove this, just to realize that, they're going to be going down closer to the 100-foot bridge to connect, to get that long ramp that comes down into the park. But you don't have to have the secondary entrance to get down in there from the Big Four.
Yeah, I think the bridge would be the very, very attractive way to enter the park, especially if you were a pedestrian. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be almost an attractive nuisance.
If I could add something to the comments, I would say, starting this, I was more in John Stairs' camp, where if we could spread money around, I'm all for that. Based on my history and those that know me, I tend to be, pretty frugal when it comes to spending money. However, being out there today and looking at it, I totally agree with what Tim's saying, in that it's just an impressive spot. And when you get up on that hill, having access to that directly from the rail trail, I mean, I foresee this bridge. Well, I mean, to backtrack, so what Jared said, I agree that it's what we've presented to the public in terms of this project, always incorporating a bridge. But I mean, I foresee graduation photos being taken on this bridge and engagement photos being taken on this bridge. And Zionsville Road is now a main corridor for north-south entry into Zionsville. And with this being directly off that corridor, I mean, this is going to be a feature park. And now this, in my opinion, would be a feature part of this park that we could offer. So I'm in favor of it. I mean, it's just an impressive spot. Being up there today, looking at it, I agree. I think to see it in the pictures, it doesn't really do it justice. But to be up there and overlook this and have this walkway where multiple people could gather and just view the park, it's an impressive feature. I think it would be.
What's your thoughts on between the two different designs?
I like this one for accessibility, for the amount of usage. I mean, if the suspension bridge was wider, could accommodate more things, I'd be interested in that. But from an affordability, accessibility, and just longevity piece, I think this one would be the better way to go.
Agreed.
How much is saved by eliminating the bridge? I don't remember those numbers.
I think it depends who we use.
$500,000.
$500,000.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really more than that. If you compare the base bid to the prefab, it's more like 900,000. It's 2.8 million for the base and 3.7 for the base, lowest base plus prefab bridge.
Well, I like the idea of doing other things, but I also believe that to come back later and try to do a bridge, the cost will be quite a bit more.
And we'd never do it. Never would we say, hey, we've got an extra $1.2 million. Let's put a bridge in. We didn't do it the first time. I agree that if it's not done now, it's not something we're going to go back in and add.
Yeah,
and that safety surfacing though, I know we're talking about bridges that I've been around what Carmel did on the Central area. It's so nice and it's so clean. So, wow, it's a tough decision there.
I agree.
What else? I did want to ask Trish.
I think that as a practical matter, we're not going to go back and redo it. If we don't do it now, this is the one chance to really do it.
A question I wanted to ask Trish, and that is, what is your view of HIS versus Ripburger, or those two bidders in terms of quality?
We're very comfortable with either of them. And in looking at the subs, we reviewed the subs that they had listed. Very comfortable with everybody that they have listed on there. They both were doing a certain amount of work themselves, which is good to see too. They both have done projects in the same scale as this. Sometimes you'll get contractors that have done smaller scale, but both of these guys do this larger scale stuff. And they're both getting the bridge from the same supplier.
Okay, let's try to make our decision on base versus base plus prefab bridge. I don't think the suspension bridge is probably in the running right now. Any other questions that relates to the bridge?
Well, Tim, I have just a general question for the entire project, and it goes back to the issues that the DNR raised to Trish and Roger with regard to some of the issues they had with our plans. Have we resolved all those?
Yes, I'm working on a letter response to her. Actually, we had everything but one sidewalk we already have in the plans. So it was just some clarification for some things that she wasn't seeing, but yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were being responsive, and because it would affect our ability to access that money.
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all good.
Any other questions? All right, so again, we'll do this in two parts, but is there a motion? Again, we'll consider all other adults after we decide on this bridge or no bridge question. So is there a motion to go with the base bid or the base bridge plus prefab bridge, base bid plus prefab bridge, sorry.
Can we break it up into two motions like that with like just make a motion to go down the bridge path and then add in alternates later, or will that bind us to just the?
Well, yeah, that good point. So if we're not doing the suspension bridge, my general sense is that we will have easily the money to do site grading B, site grading C, planting B, planting C. And if you chose HIS, which would be the lowest with the prefab bridge, you would also take their shelter lighting and electric bid at 17.5. I would not do the boardwalk rail or safety servicing, but we can discuss all of these. So again, we may get buried in the detail there. That's why I kind of wanted to do it in two steps. And if we did the base bid, you may, with Ripburger, then you may want to do more. You may feel like you have more excess to add to the project. So that's why I think we should go in two steps, John, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, it's fine. I just want to make sure we were staying above board.
Yeah. So again, you're going to get another chance to discuss all of the ads other than the bridges. But do we have a motion that will for us to pursue either the base bid or alternatively the base bid plus prefab bridge?
So I would make a motion that we pursue the base bid plus the alternate one prefab bridge.
Okay, Member Wallenberg has made the motion for to add the prefab bridge or to consider that before we move forward. Is there a second?
I second.
Aaron Bidwell makes the second. Any more questions or comments before we vote on the motion? All right, then let's do a roll call vote. John Wallenberg.
Aye.
Wayne Bivens.
Aye.
John Stair.
I guess I'm on an island by myself. I say no.
Okay, no problem. Jill Pack.
Man, this is tough. Knowing that this is probably our only shot, I'll say aye.
John Salovich.
Aye.
Aaron Bidwell.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so the motion passes 6-1. All right, so I now let's consider the other alternatives. And I think this tells us that the low bidder is HIS, and pretty much no matter, unless we add safety surfacing, HIS is going to remain the low bidder no matter what we add. But we can decide that later after we decide what we want to add. And the additions are, yeah, they're not a lot between Ripburger and HIS. They're not a lot different. So just to get us moving forward, because I think the easy ones are the site grading B and C and the planting B and C, that we include those. Those are all very inexpensive, come in under our, what some of our estimates were. So I think those are easy adds. So I would suggest that we then talk about the boardwalk rails, safety servicing, and the shelter lighting.
I would just like to make a recommendation from staff. Considering the safety servicing, I would oppose it. I just think based on the life cycle of having to replace that, it's not quite worth what it would give to the park, as well as mulch can be refreshened regularly, and it adds to the natural look of the park, since we are only blazing enough space for what we need, and we're leaving a lot of natural vegetation. So that's just my recommendation.
Yeah, I would echo that. I was going to say the same thing in terms of the safety services. Is that ever going to be done in the future? I think the cost is probably similar to what it is done new. I would be in favor of the shelter lighting. I think it future proofs us a little bit and allows our staff, if they need to do any maintenance after hours, some safety issues there. So I'd be in favor of not doing the safety surfacing, but adding the shelter lighting.
Would
Other
someone
comment?
explain? I'd like to know a little more about the safety surfacing. Is that, what is that?
Tricia, you want to comment?
I've got 3 screens going and it gets confusing. The safety surfacing is the poured in place rubber.
Okay.
So it's the solid surface rubber, sort of spongy stuff that we just put in at Lions Park and at Elm Street Green.
Okay. I understand. Thank you.
Other questions, comments, opinions?
Well, one thing I was wondering with the grading bee, they said going, you walk. I would love to get out there. I've not seen, since I dumped leaves back in there in the 90s. So the canyon look, why is that bad?
It's just a little, I don't know that it is bad. It's just a little less that you can kind of see out over the site. There's a little bit of filling hidden while you're going through there. But yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing.
You said so. This is walking to the disc golf or to the trails in the disc golf section, right?
Yeah, essentially just leaving the whole playground area, kind of heading south. That's the main trail that you'll go down through there. So what happened is when they built the subdivision, they kind of pushed, these big hills of dirt. And so right now we're going right through the middle of one of those. And B just lets us kind of push that, down the hillside just a little bit so that it's not as drastic a cut for the pathway going through there.
But it also allows for something in the future, right? The parking lot or a second entrance or something you were explaining, Tricia.
C, if you do grading C. So you need to do grading B and C to allow for that, yes. So the trail goes here and the new parking or entrance will go right beside it, is essentially what we're doing.
Other comments, questions? Again, the boardwalk rail, I don't, it gives you a little more visibility if you had the metal squares, but I'm not sure if it's worth $60,000 compared to vertical wooden rails or wooden posts. Or
I'll just add as well, from a maintenance and upkeep standpoint, it's much more cost effective to put in the electricity to the shelter now than in the future. And we don't know what the future is going to hold as far as how we program and utilize Overly Warman. It is a dusk park now, but who's to say that won't become 11 o'clock later, or something to that effect.
Okay, so any other comments, questions? What I'm hearing is grading B, C, planting B, C, and shelter lighting. So that is add Alt 1 prefab bridge, add Alt 3, add Alt 4, add Alt 5, add Alt 6, and add Alt 9, which almost is summarized in the, it's under HIS, it's base plus blah, 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 blah. It's 3.7, $3,754,000, but you need to add the lighting to that. And then that is where we are. That is, I mean, that's what I would propose that we move forward with. That's what I'm hearing anyway.
Yeah, well, I'll make that motion, Tim, if that's what we need.
All right, Rogers. Thank you. Let me set out what Roger says we need to move, John. See if you're happy with this. It says, I move to award the bid for Overly Warman Park project to HIS Constructors as the lowest responsible and responsive bidder, accepting the base bid along with the following add alternates, and then the ones I've just talked about. And then also he's would like us to go forward and say the bid by Boyle Construction Management was rejected as being not responsive in one or more material respects per our attorney's opinion.
Okay, I have that here. Want me to go ahead and make that motion? Or
Yes,
did
please.
you just do that?
Well, if you can say so moved and just make sure we're okay, you may want to go through the add alts just to make sure we double check each other.
All right, I move that we award the bid for Overly Warming Park to HIS Constructors as the lowest responsible and responsive bidder, accepting the base bid along with the following add alternates, Alt 1, the prefab bridge, Alt 3, site grading B, Alt 4, site grading C, Alt 5, planting B, Alt 6, planting, Alt C, and Alt 9, the shelter lighting and electric. The bid by Boyle Construction Management Incorporated was rejected as being not responsive in one or more material respects per our attorney's opinion.
Thank you, John. Is there a second to that motion?
I second that enthusiastically.
Did I see, was that Wallenberg made the second?
That was me.
Can you repeat that verbatim?
Yeah, well, I can read it off, John. That was the record for the longest worded bid.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments or discussion about the motion?
Tricia, are you okay with this?
My only concerns are the unit prices.
Right.
And how we have that discussion with the contractor, if that needs to be somehow a motion or somehow included in this.
Yeah, that just to mention that when we talked about this before, we weren't sure if we'd be ready to award the bid tonight because Tricia brought up that, and I don't know if we still have this, but the long and the short of it is that there's also unit pricing as part of each bid, and there was one area where HIS was extremely high, and that's on debris removal. According to Tricia, the number they have on that is probably quadruple times what it should be. And Tricia, my thought was that I mean, we can award the bid to HIS, and we can tell them, you know, that we're not going to have them do any debris removal because their charge for that is ridiculous.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, and we can do change orders. So if we come up with something we want them to do that's reasonable and they agree to a reasonable price, we could do that with a change order. But yes, I would not want to commit to giving them a blank check for removing debris. The other thing is, I mean, we know there's a lot of debris out there, but our plan was not to have it removed. because we've always kind of planned that the mountain bike people could make use of some of that. Does that make sense?
So are these unit pricing, is that in addition to the bid? Yeah, maybe I didn't understand that correctly.
Yeah. Trish, could you explain that?
So the way the unit pricing works is it works for change orders. So that applies to deductions and additions. So if we add anything to the project, then we would typically use the unit prices that were submitted along with the bid. If we remove work from the project, we would use these unit prices to calculate what that fee is. What it does is it just helps to establish that fee ahead of time so that you don't have those arguments, discussions, negotiations in the middle of the contract. And we had unit prices for, debris, asphalt, concrete, boardwalk, a lot of the plantings. So we just tried to hit the, sort of the big things to get a unit price. And there are a few areas for both HIS and Rittberger where they're not standard industry recognized unit prices that are listed here.
Well, their excavation was 4 times the others as well. So, I mean, if we're going to go back to the unit prices, we might, look at the whole list.
So we have two things. Roger's saying, hey, this cuts, since you can amend and add or subtract, that they have an incentive to change these. If you just say, hey, why would you ever do this? Because we may subtract, some pavement, which will save us a lot of money. Or we can amend the motion to make the award subject to discussions and renegotiation of unit pricing to the satisfaction of, the president, the superintendent, and our,
So Roger, by accepting the bid, we're not bound to this unit pricing.
Well, that's my point, in that I don't think we can force, if we accept the bid, I don't think we can force them to change that, but we can tell them, that we're not going to do any of it. So I think there's a way to deal with it. I want to be careful that we're not, doing something that potentially changes who the low bidder would be. So we've made that determination, and I think we can deal with this when we sign the contract and all that, and just be aware of it and deal with it in other ways. But I don't think we need to amend our motion.
We're going to be very conservative with change orders. We have the advantage of a great package of documentation and drawings from REA. So we're in a good position to resist change orders. But on the other hand, you don't know what opportunities or unforeseen problems you might come up against.
Okay.
So John.
So if we do get into the project and we find that we need like a significant amount of debris removal, do we have to go then negotiate another contract with a different company to get the right standard industry price? And then the project's just sitting there while we're waiting for that? I'm a little confused by that.
Tricia, what do you think about that?
So typically when the contractor comes to us and says, hey, I need to do something that wasn't included in the plans, we do a thorough review of the plans and the specifications, and the specifications are very thorough in terms of what was required, and that is a part of the contract documents. So it's not exactly open, for them to just come in and arbitrarily demand more money for a change order. Now, it's construction, so occasionally you uncover things that you didn't count on uncovering. So that does come into play. And then I think it's just, there's budgets and only a certain amount of money that you have and some considerations that you have to work through with the contractor at that point.
Yeah, so we tell them we don't have the money to do that and deal with it some other fashion.
Right.
So John and John, are you comfortable with that, or would you rather amend your motion or withdraw your motion?
I'm comfortable with that.
I'm good.
Okay. Other questions or comments before we vote? All right, let's do a roll call vote then on the motion. John Wallenberg,
Aye.
Wayne Bivens,
Aye.
John Stair,
Aye.
Jill Pack,
Aye.
John Solovich,
Aye.
Aaron Bidwell.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so the motion to award our contract to HIS Constructors for the base bid plus the prefab bid plus the other enumerated add alts is unanimously carried. All right. Jared, is there anything else you want to add or that we've missed on the overly warming construction bid?
I think that was a pretty thorough rundown.
All right, very good. Then let's go on to old business. And we've got the South Rail Extension Project that REA is, I don't know where you are, they're beyond 50% on the construction documents for extending the trail from Starkey Avenue Bridge, replacing the Starkey Avenue Bridge, extending the trail, paving the trail south, and then also adding a trailhead at Zionsville Road. So, I mean, we have to get the property for the trailhead before we can finish this and get planning approval. A couple of things that Jared and I have asked Tricia to change on her 50% construction documents was to take the width of the path in Von Terra is 15 feet. The width of our rail trail path, let's say the natural surface section that we were going to pave is 10 feet. It's 10 or 8 feet in other places where it goes under Oak Street, it's 8 feet. So there's varying widths. Generally, we want to make that wider. And we've asked Tricia to really as a concession to Von Terra is to make our path 15 feet wide from where it ends off in Von Terra to across the 100-foot bridge. And then the path would be 12 feet wide all the way to the Starkey Avenue Bridge. This will also permit her to get an alternate bid on the Starkey Avenue Bridge for a narrower bridge. I think the one we had the price for $605,000 was for a 14-foot wide bridge, Tricia, and there may be a 12-foot version of that that's cheaper. So we're checking on that. But really, it's an aesthetic decision that that corridor, we really don't want to blow it way out and reduce some of the greenery. And we also have 8-foot path that is a bigger priority that starts right after the Pine Street ramp, and that's a problem, and we need to widen that, and we may not even be able to widen that more than 10 feet because of some of the constraints, or it'll be very expensive to widen more than that. So that's moving forward. Again, once we get our 3 parcels, we'll be ready to get planning approval and to bid that out as well. Tricia, is there anything you wanted to add on the South Extension project?
No, just that looks like the next agenda item, we'll need to make a decision on the bridge, just to incorporate that design in it. Looks like we'll have the restroom building is a prefab restroom building, but we include architectural drawings just in case there's, an equal someone else that wants to bid on it. So those architectural drawings will be complete by next week, that we'll be able to roll into those. So really we'll be waiting on the bridge to roll into those plans.
You know, on the bridge, we've proposed to Lance and the streets department and to Trish that we want the bridge that will permit only on one side of Starkey Road to have a path added. So it was the cheapest of all the versions that you considered last month. So that's what we're proceeding on in terms of the Starkey Avenue Bridge. All right, any other old business?
Back to the bridge, the Starkey Bridge.
Yeah.
You mentioned what you're thinking, but has the board approved that plan?
Which
No,
plan?
I don't believe they picked out of the 3 options last time, and I was hoping we could get a motion for that. Even if the prices decrease by making it a 12-foot bridge, I think we should still pick whether we want 1 pathway, 2 pathways, or none. And I think the none is kind of out. So I would recommend the cheapest of the 3.
This will probably come back when we have the final plans, though, Roger. So again, you know, Lance may have an opinion on this, so it may be premature, Jared, to have a motion. If Lance has blessed it, that's great. I mean, again, we're trying to propose to Lance that this is what we want to do, but we've agreed to partner with Streets on this bridge and make sure we include him in every facet of it.
I've spoke with Lance, and he just wanted to ensure that there was a pathway underneath. So 1 would suffice.
Yeah, as long as it's not holding Tricia up, I think we can wait. I mean, the board has to approve the plans before it goes to bid, but we're not too close to that, Tricia.
No, I mean, I need my structural engineer to design the bridge. So it sounds like we can proceed with that, with the bridge that's been selected. And then, yeah, we'll come back to the board for the full plan approval when we get ready to bid, before we bid.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. And then we go immediately to the planning department, Roger. So, but we need the land parcels first to go to planning. So yeah, you guys, yeah, between Tricia and you, we need to make sure we get everything, all in the next month, right? All right. Are there anything else on the South Rail Extension or Starkey Avenue Bridge projects? Any other old business? Any other board-related items?
Tim, I have
Wayne,
a question on some old business. I thought that somebody had mentioned, it might have been, I don't know who mentioned in the past, but is Ecologic working on a contract to do some invasive elimination at our parks? Jared, do you know anything about that, or?
Yeah, they have been doing work for us throughout the year. They
Okay.
did most recently work at Starkey's Prairie.
Okay.
And I believe they're still scheduled to go up and down the rail trail and control for invasives.
Okay. Now, will they do that this fall, winter, or next year, or just periodically, or how does that work?
You know, I don't know specifically on that. I'll have to get back to you on when that's happening.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, I know
in
we,
the past, go ahead, Roger, you probably know
we've
more than me.
routinely contracted with Ecologic to do work. I remember last time, or maybe it was 2 years ago, that Matt Dickey asked me to look at their agreement because he thought there were some unreasonable things in their standard agreement. You know, if we're going to contract with them again for next year, Jared, let's make sure that I check the contract and be sure that they're not slipping in things that are not in our best interest.
That's fair. I appreciate their support in helping our parks, but I also think we could probably rally up enough engaged volunteers in the community to really help us. We have pesticide application in-house with our maintenance team, so I think we could come up with a strategy to target some of our parks.
That was kind of, I work with Eagle Creek Park. I volunteer out there, and we have a invasive strike force team, as we're called, and we go out into the park, and it's almost an endless project. I mean, there's so much stuff out there but I think the park personnel are the ones who handle the herbicide, and we simply identify and cut the stuff off, and then they spray it. So yeah, I think that it's an excellent place for maybe a volunteer activity.
Yeah,
It's a perfect scout thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Great, good point. Any other board-related items? Then let's move on to the claims. Are there any questions or comments regarding the claims as submitted in your board packet?
I had one. What was Willoughby Industries? There was a couple big amounts for that. What? Anybody know?
Drinking fountain.
What was it?
The drinking fountain. I just know Willoughby does the drinking fountains, so I think that's what that is.
Oh, probably a dog park.
We, no, the dog park drinking fountain was actually donated by the Girl Scouts.
Oh, great.
But we did have 2 replaced at Mulberry Fields. The skate park one was in pretty bad shape, and we also had another one that was beginning to rust. So those are just replacements ready to pop into place.
Did I read this right? It's almost $10,000.
Yes.
Like
I know 2 or 3 months ago, we approved those 2 or 3 drinking fountains. I
Right.
don't recall the amounts. Dave Moliterno had a schedule of those.
Okay. That makes sense. They were drinking fountains. Okay. I remember that discussion.
And Dave is on the line if you would like a little bit more clarification.
No, as long as we know what they were, I just wasn't familiar with that company.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the claims as submitted? Is there a motion to approve claims as submitted?
A motion to approve claims as they were submitted.
Member Wallenberg has made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Member Pack has seconded the motion. Any other questions or discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote to approve claims. John Wallenberg,
Aye.
Wayne Bivens,
Aye.
John Stair,
Aye.
Jill Pack,
Aye.
John Solovich,
Aye.
Aaron Bidwell.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so claims as submitted are approved. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? I so move.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I
John
second.
Solovich seconds the motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Let's see a show of hands on the motion to adjourn. All right, unanimously approved. All right, thank you, everybody. And again, if you do want to get out to the park, please send me a message and I'd be happy to go out there or get Jared or I, and we'd be happy to take you out and show you how to get into the Overly Warman Park. But thanks for all of your dedication to the parks, and we will see you in the second Wednesday of December.